Thank you for tuning in to Fat Black and Femme. This is Bree, and we are bringing you something to round out the month of June. Now, June has Pride, June has Juneteenth, but it's also Black Music Month. And we're having a great conversation today. Have Avis and Zahyia here with me, and I'm really excited for our conversation. I just want to start off, starting with Avis. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, and what you do here in Rochester.
Okay, hi. My name is Avis Reese. I am born and raised in Rochester, and I play keyboards and piano and organ. I played in church as well as in the non-church music scene here. And yeah, I don't remember what else you asked, but that's a good start, right?
Yeah. Just we're right today. Our topic is Black women in music. So yeah, we're just getting to know these two Black women here, and just right now, just a little bit about you. So that's fine. That's great. So talented. I wish I could play multiple things. I wish I could play something. So let me not say multiple. Zahyia, why don't you introduce yourself?
So my name is Zahyia. I am not originally from Rochester, but made my way here thanks to U of R and a boy, so I'll say that. I currently am a full-time musician, working on original projects, and up until recently was the manager and producer for wedding band here, Silver Arrow, doing corporate shows and managing I think we had about 150 musicians in our database at most recent point. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for coming on today, taking some time. It's Black Music Month, so I just wanted to bring you guys here for a conversation on your perspective in the music industry as Black women, and how that impacts your career. So just starting off, I want to know how you guys got into music. We'll start with Zahyia, then Avis. How you guys got into it, and some big mentors for you as well.
Yeah, I grew up in a really small town. Literally, there are like 87 people in my senior class. But so when I started music, it was at a very early age, probably around 3 or 4. With my father, he's a jazz musician and studied composition at Berklee School of Music, and so he was just very into the jazz scene. So a lot of the things that I learned were from him, and just I remember when I was about 12, I asked him if I could do a gig with him, and he was like, all right. He handed me a real book, which is basically like this 500-page thing with all the jazz standards in it, and he was like, all right, you learn the songs in this book and you can come with me. And so I started just going through that, and then listening to a lot of Ella Fitzgerald and Nina Simone and Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday. Those were the first vocalists that I kind of focused on and really just learned through them.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. Did you like the Billie Holiday movie on Hulu?
I did.
Yeah,
I thought she did a great job. I mean, it was great that they pulled in a lot of the small aspects of her life while telling just what was going on, just specifically with the trial versus the United States and the federal government and stuff. But yeah, I liked it.
I did too. I thought it was really well done. And Andre did an amazing job. Awesome. And Avis, just how you got started in music, mentors and things like that.
I started playing, we had an upright piano at our house, and I started playing that fairly young. I have an older sister who's 20 years older than me, and she's also a pianist. And by the time I was born, she was already off to college and everything. So she was my idol from a distance, and just knowing that she played, and I would see this picture of her where she was sitting at the upright piano, and I just would try and mimic her. So that was my start. And then playing in church is kind of how I developed the skill. And probably around 2009, I want to say, is when I got introduced to the Rochester music scene. So up until then, I had strictly just played in church, played gospel. And a friend of mine, Judah Seeley, who I met through a service at U of R, he wanted to start a band and he asked me if I would play, and I was like, it'll be fun, like I'm gonna do it. Didn't know what to expect. Did that for a while and just started getting connected with other musicians in the Rochester music scene, and it just became something that I couldn't even imagine. Now I'm playing for Danielle Ponder, and the things that we're doing is just like, I just couldn't have imagined it from like where I started from to where things are going now and where they're continuing to go. It's been a great journey for me.
Nice. Yeah, no, Danielle's amazing. That,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I can only imagine, like, when really intellectual people, you think about the times when they're being their most creative, and how interesting that process must be with her. And I know, great music from both of you for sure. Yeah, those are both, like, I always find musicians have just the most amazing, like, origin stories of, like, you know, how they got into it and what drove them. And it's always someone super influential and, you know, tapping into that creativity. And so you guys basically had an entire year, though, where this industry couldn't exist in its full capacity. How did you guys navigate that? Like, how did you navigate not being able to work almost? Zahyia.
Okay. Honestly, it had me shift focus. I really, I was very much entrenched in cover bands and, you know, and cover music with what I'm, you know, just how I ended up building up my career to be able to not have a day gig, as I call it. And so it just made me shift focus a bit. I was relying on other people for original stuff, and I just realized during that time, like, if I'm going to keep doing this, or why am I doing it? And when I had to look at the why, I had to really just stop relying on other people and stop, you know, making that a focus when it came to original stuff. So I did do a shift, focusing more on, you know, what truly the reason why I'm continuing. And that got me through.
Yeah.
It was there.
Yeah, no, it's like a crossroads. It's like, okay. And this is also showing you the worst of the worst that could happen. You know, so it's like, if we can't make it through here, you know, you start to have those philosophical questions for yourself. Avis, how did you handle the pandemic as a musician?
Not well. Like, it was, honestly, it was a combination of like the worst time and the best time for me. It was the worst time in the beginning because, one, I had gotten to a point, like, in the beginning of 2020 where, like, I had finally felt like I had figured things out. Like, I had built up this momentum. I had worked through, like, a lot of insecurities that had held me back before, and I was pushing myself in new ways. And I just felt like I had a real good footing with, like, knowing where I was going and what the next step was. And it was just all taken away. And even I had booked for Danielle, I had spent a lot of time booking this tour, our European tour that was supposed to be for May 2020, and that got canceled. And I really grieved that because it just felt like I just had so much hope and joy in, like, the prospects of that. And so kind of going through this real grief state, I didn't feel like a musician for most of the year. Like, I didn't realize how much live shows meant to me. I knew I enjoyed it, but I was like, oh, well, I'll be home practicing and I'll be, like, building. No, I wasn't. Like, I did not feel connected to my instrument at all. So it was the worst in that way, but it was the best in another way because like it really made me sit with me and reconnect with those things that kind of get lost in the busyness of gigging. You know, even simple things like reading or simple things like just like, you know, going on walks or, you know, doing things with my family or whatever. Like it made me connect to who I am as a whole individual and not just who I am as a musician. And I didn't realize that there was such a disconnect for so many years. I didn't realize like how much energy I had been putting into just focusing on music and like how much of that other side of me was neglected. And so it was really a great time to reconnect to me and connect to other things that I'm passionate about. I got involved with local activism in a way that I've never been involved in the past. I've always had a heart for it, but I've never been like as invested. So it was great in that way for me, to kind of separate who I am from the music.
Nice. Those are both the best possible outcomes because it ended with you guys being in a better place and better place with yourself and your music. So that's really some of the best outcomes you could want from such a unexpected year. I don't think anyone expected for it to last an entire year. I think we thought a few months tops, you know, and then all of a sudden it's 6 months and things are just getting worse. So yeah, the last year I know took a lot of people through it. And I'm glad you guys made it out on the other side in such a positive and amazing place. Like it's super important, you know, because we Black people were highly more impacted by COVID than non-Black people. So really like our mental health, a lot of people who are Black nurses and doctors, you know, they dealt with the trauma of being like, not only am I caring for these people, but I'm also one of the highest risk groups for this, and I'm here, and you know, so it's just full circle. Whether you're a musician, whatever, you know, your industry was impacted, and it impacted you. Did you pick up any new hobbies or anything during the pandemic? Like, did you do anything different, fun? I know some people started baking a lot. I did banana bread for like the first month. Got really good at it. Yeah.
Nice. So what you're saying is you'll have some for us after the
Of course, you know, like we're not in person right now, but we can be. Like, you know, some people picked up baking. You guys didn't get into baking or anything, or you already kind of have your busy thing.
Yeah, you know, I did. You know, so I mean, I definitely went through my depression during COVID. So to fight it, I did everything I possibly could to not sit down. So I ended up taking up landscaping, and I did a whole garden in my backyard. I was kind of a crazy woman. Just so that I wouldn't sit down. I was like, don't sit down, Zahyia. Just don't sit down. Like, I was like, yeah, I ended up planting like a bunch of kale, and so gardening was the big. And then as it started getting colder, I started baking too. And it was bread, but just like regular braided bread. I don't know, I started, yeah. And then Christmas came, and then it was like, oh no, what are we gonna do now? But yeah, I was a little bit crazy. And then a lot of renovations. I taught myself how to do plumbing work because I'm cheap. And
you're a Renaissance woman now.
Yeah, it's really just that I'm crazy, and when I stay still, bad things happen. So I just have to keep going. I think that's why live music and live gig life was so therapeutic for me, because you can't. I mean, like, you know, after we end this talk today, I gotta go, and you know, I'm gonna be setting up sound and doing all types of stuff. But just, yeah.
See, I missed out on the whole like baking thing. I didn't do it. I missed out on that part. So I don't know if I picked up any new things, but I guess now that we're on the like end of the pandemic, over the past month, I have picked up walking.
Okay.
Initially it was like to get rid of the COVID weight, but now like I just like really enjoy it. Like it's a like meditative, calming, grounding time for me. So that's new. but I was, kind of stuck in my normal lazy routines for the most part during the height of it.
And there's no shame in that. Some people, there's no shame in that. The pandemic definitely brought out certain things in people, whether it was that or anything. But I mean, yeah, the last year was definitely hard. I don't think we can get over that or overstate that enough. But as Black women in any industry, we have a wall, some battles. We know we have battles ahead. I would say, what was the earliest battle you guys had, maybe as Black women in music? Let's start with Avis.
Ooh, the earliest one.
And then I want to know the worst one, the biggest one. I just want to know the first battle you were like, okay, this is what my life's going to be like. Yeah.
I think the earliest one for me came in church. There's this one incident, and it's sad because now I've been reflecting on it, and I shouldn't have given this incident so much weight for so many years, but regardless, I remember going to this, it was called a Fifth Sunday meeting at our church, where like the different districts came together for a weekend. Mm-hmm. And I got there early and went to the keyboard, and the other organist that was the organist of that church, he got on the organ, and it was like maybe 5 minutes before service was about to begin, and he was like, you can play now, but when such and such gets here, you're gonna have to get off. And I was really hurt because here I was like thinking I was a legitimate musician, but to him, I wasn't. It was like, no, you're not good enough to stay on. You were here on time. This person is about to be late, but it don't matter. He's better than you, so you're gonna have to get off. And it didn't sit well with me. And it was just like situations like that kind of happen more often than not. It might not have been as overt as that one, but it was definitely like this vibe of like, you don't play like the boys. And we, so you can sit and watch, or you can play when it's not important, but when it is important, let them get on. So I think that was probably the earliest one. The worst one, I would probably say, and I want to be careful because I don't want to like name names or like do anything like that. I was in this one musical situation with someone who just, it was very clear he never wanted to take direction from me. And it would always manifest in different ways. And this was somebody that, I had to work with routinely. But it just, I remember telling him how to play something, and he just was like combative, like really, really combative. And we had to record something at a studio, and he put down his part and it was wrong. And so the session was over. I went home. He had to go back to do his part over. And the studio director was giving him the same exact instruction that I was giving him, but he listened to that guy. So it was like, coming from me, it wasn't valid, but coming from him, he took the direction. And it was just so blatant and overt, and other people noticed and communicated to me that they noticed. And it was just like, it stung, it was just like, it was like just blatant disrespect. And also it also had made me feel like, well, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Like maybe I didn't know the right thing. And it was just like, no, I did know what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And here I was trying to adjust and adapt when it was really him just being like a douche. So that might be the worst.
Oh wow, yeah. I can definitely see how that would, how the church one would stick with you though. I
Hmm.
can totally see how that stuck with you. Like I know if it was me, I'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
I thought I was okay,
Yeah.
you know. No, I can totally see. I think you're valid in how it stuck with you, you know, to unpack it eventually.
It's sad because, like, in reflecting on it, I think sometimes we do these things or people say these things and they don't mean for it to necessarily be harmful.
Hmm.
Like I don't think that the man meant to hurt me or meant to insult me, but it landed in the worst possible way, and it landed for years for me. Um, and I had to come to a space where like I wasn't holding it against him because I know that wasn't his intention, but these things happen, and I think they happen more often than these guys realize.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, they leave an impact. Because yeah, when you hear the words, there's nothing wrong. You know, we're gonna let this guy in, but it is the fact that you're on time. It just feels like Black women can like go be the person that's there on time and still the one that's looked over.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I understand that. But yeah, Zahyia, I want to know your first. So the first battle you had to deal with, and also the one that like stands out above the rest is terrible.
Yeah. Um, so my first one, it's probably when I was about, I don't know, it was 14 or 15. I'd been writing music and doing production work because my father, like I said, he was a musician, so he had like a bunch of gear, and I learned how to use, like at that time, because I'm old, it was like a Tascam 4-track multi-track recorder, and like I had a TR-808 drum machine and just processors. I've been doing sequencing and production work with that for like about 5 years at that point. And a friend of mine was connected with a record company, so they brought me in and they're like, oh yeah, you know, you're pretty talented, we could do something with you. But my music wasn't exactly in any specific genre. I've always kind of been eclectic with what I listen to, and so therefore that comes out in my writing. And they were making a decision. They were making decisions for me, and luckily my father was wise enough to know that it wasn't a good situation to get in. But they wanted me to be more of a pop star, and more of a, similar to, at the time it was like, I think, Sweet Sensation. You know, I don't know if you remember that group. Anyway, yeah, there's a weird pop girl group, but that's where they wanted to put me as. They were like, okay, we can put you with two other girls and you can be in this pop star thing. And then they didn't want to take any of my writing or anything like that, and it really made me feel insignificant. And despite the fact, anything that my father would say, he would always give me the opposite and was always really just super supportive. But being so young and being told, you know, that you could be good if you would be more like this kind of situation, really just, you know, similar to how Avis felt, really discouraged by those words. That whole situation really made me feel insignificant, or like, you know, and instilled early that, oh, I'm really not as good as my dad says I am, or, you know, anything like that. So unfortunately, it started a long trend after that with other situations, same type of thing. But I think the worst one actually was a different scenario. I won't mention either names or anything, but it was here in Rochester back in the 90s. I was working at a recording studio as an intern, and there were a couple of people there who were really supportive and encouraging, and some of them are here in the Rochester music scene still to this day. But there was one person, individual, specifically, who was from out of town, and he was very well known in the music industry. Kind of took me and said, oh yeah, you know, I'll help you with your writing, everything, but you're just gonna have to come to my house. And it ended up being a situation of more of sexual assault. So that, I think, and I was 19 at the time. So that, and there were, that's something else that just, as a woman in the music industry, it just, too many times that I've been in situations where there was some type of, sexual harassment or sexual suggestion or anything that indicates that, hey, if you want to get ahead, I can help you, but, I'll do you a favor, you do me a favor kind of situation. So very disheartening from that standpoint. And so I think, that was the worst. That was the first and the worst one.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Yeah, that's.
I don't know how deep you wanted to go.
No, it's like the thing is that's a reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's a reality, and being Black women is like we have two strikes. The world, we're Black, but we also have to deal with the patriarchy and the misogyny and men. We still have to deal with them.
Yeah.
And with that's a reality, sadly, when that is the kind of situation, and someone out of town, so they think that they won't see you again. And it was all those factors of that story, I feel like musicians deal with that. Because, you guys are traveling, you guys are touring, you're going on you're meeting all these people. And sadly, you're going to meet one or two who are like, I can take advantage of you because I won't see you again. And that,
yeah. I was going to say too, I also think it speaks to just another aspect of women and Black women specifically, where we're viewed in two different ways. It's like either you're the mothering type, or you're the sexual object. Mm-hmm. And I think that because up until recently, even in film, we didn't have a lot of representation showing otherwise. It just has been just a perpetuated stereotype of what it means what people expect that you will be as a Black woman.
Yes.
And so, really, and honestly, that's the main reason why I decided I'm just going to stick with this. I'm at this point, I'm breaking all types of reasons to stay. I've got 4 kids. I'm going to be in my 50s very soon. It's just so many reasons
you look
why.
Good.
Yeah.
You look great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just had to say that.
Again, that's another thing in the music industry too, is just that women are expected to do these things when they're young. And then the minute they hit a certain age, it's like, okay, now go hide behind a curtain because, you're old. Nobody can, be excited when they see you, or supposedly, I don't know, so that's, the ageism part is real too. So I'm glad that Avis is still sticking in this too, and I hope that you'll be 50 and still in the game. And
I hope so.
Yeah, and just realizing we do have different generations here right now, and that's a really beautiful thing. I hope we get there too, Avis. It's definitely, it's such a creative and amazing career, but everything has its cons. Avis, have you dealt with a lot of misogyny, predator type behavior? Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's funny because I never looked at it before as predatory, but it was always one of those things. Again, in this state of constant reflection, I have had to think back on the number of times I've uncomfortably laughed at something that I didn't want to laugh at, just for the sake of don't anger the boys type of thing. I know that period of time where my body changed and that everybody was commenting on it, you getting thick and this and that and the other. And it's just you ain't saying that to nobody else in this rehearsal room or on this stage. And it's just you being that person that has to sit there and take it because you just don't know what your other options are. You already don't feel like you belong in this space, and if I add another thing to it, it's just man, I really won't be in this space. Thankfully, there weren't too many situations that escalated to a point of assault or anything like that. But it's definitely been enough situations that I like have seriously made me uncomfortable. You know, relationships that I shouldn't have entertained at all. And just thinking back on those, it's just like, had I had a little more assurance of myself, I probably wouldn't have. So yeah, it manifests in so many ways. It manifests in other ways too that I wasn't expecting. So like around 2009, I went from like just kind of playing in my own small church circle to this larger gospel community. And when I entered into that space, I was really critiqued on how I dressed. And so there were, an individual who was like, okay, when you come to rehearsal, like you can come in jeans, but you need to have pumps on. Like I had to dress a certain way for rehearsals. And I'm like, why can't I wear sneakers? Like the drummer is wearing sneakers, the bass player is wearing sneakers. They look a hot mess, but I gotta come looking dialed up. And it was just like, that was a thing. I was told, and I'm a very simple person, and I don't like a lot of flash and whatever, but it was told to me that I needed to get myself a Coach bag. And so that when I walked up to the organ, I could have my Coach bag and sit it on top of the organ so that people could see it, and it needed to be matching my shoes and all this other. And I'm like, can I just play? Like, and it was just so obvious because these directions weren't being given to the male musicians. These male musicians were coming in white tees and dirty sneakers and jeans and shorts and baseball caps, but for some reason I had to be this presentation. And I had walked into that role for years, and once I got out of that scene and was just able to come as me in whatever way I feel, I might come dressed up, I might not, but like, you're gonna focus on what I'm playing and not necessarily how I look. But it took a lot of undoing for me for that, and it had lasting effects on me, and even in how I was perceived in these circles. Like I was perceived as like being this type of girl, and then people would get to know me and it's like, oh, you just like cool, like I thought you were this, that, and the other. And I'm like, no, I'm not. But I had to dress the part as if I was, you know. And so thankfully I kind of got out of that circle and have been able to feel more like authentically me. And yeah, you're touching on something that I think is actually huge and something I have a big problem with. And I saw it a lot from the booking side with Silver Arrow, just where clients would legit not want to hire certain people just because of the way they looked. Either they felt threatened by them, or they didn't exactly fit their idea of what a woman should look like when they're in a band singing. And wow.
That it's been, and the times that I've heard things is almost, it's insulting, and most of the time from women.
Yeah.
So there's like a very, very much a learned behavior that we have even as women, where we are very cringe judgy of other women. And yeah, I'm glad that you didn't stick with that. I happen to like
I couldn't.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't.
It's not me. It's just not me. Like, why all that focus on like Coach bag, and I was told I needed to have like a long weave. I tried that, the long straight weave. It was a hot mess. All the things, and it was just really, I wish I didn't even entertain it. But I did entertain it for a while, and it just, I wish I didn't entertain it, because I think so many people thought that was me. And it's just like, no, that's not me. Like, I'm not that girl. They're trying to make me into that girl, but I'm not her at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad I got out of it too.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, and even with you talk about the hair, I think you and I have even had discussions about that, where I was telling you how like I legit would do so with the wedding band that Avis and I are both part of. I would put on these like feature showcases to kind of show who the band is, and there were times when and it could have just been my own thing because of my own learned behavior, and I acknowledge that. However, there were times where if I wore my hair natural, I felt like the response to me was very different compared to if I had my hair in like a weave, or even just the crochet braids or something like that, just something other than the afro or the dreadlocks. Like, for whatever reason, the response was different. And I could even say that outside, like, and I've done this, I call it a social experiment. I do these social experiments throughout my life just to see. I'm like, you know what, I wonder what would happen if I switch this up. And it's disturbing how the response of how people react to you is very different. And yeah, so that's a reason. I think that's a reason for, you know, us to stay in this music industry. And it's one of the things I reflected on a lot during COVID, where I was just like, no, we need more women. We need more representation of women who are just being themselves. If they happen to, you know, love having weaves in, awesome, that's them. But, you know, for those who aren't like that, stop putting us in that situation.
Yeah, like I think I've kind of gone through that journey with natural hair. Like I went natural in 2015, and it definitely became more of a topic of conversation. I don't know if necessarily like I was, you know, I don't know if it's the same situation of like people saying they didn't want me on gigs because of it, but it definitely became more of a like, is your hair supposed to be like that, or is that what you were going for type of thing, or just feeling like it was just never like right, like maybe when it gets a little longer and the fro looks more curly, is, you know, gonna be that, but as this teeny weeny afro, it looks like a mistake and I just don't feel attractive. And, you know, they're looking at me like, you know, whatever the things were, whether those were my own hangups or stuff that, you know, things that were kind of subtly hinted or not so subtly hinted by other folks. I feel like hair has been like a huge thing. And like I said, when I was in that church scene, it was very much like there's like the standard, like you either have the weave, it's the long straight weave, or like weave with like a little bit of a flow to it, or if it's not a weave, it's got to be like a good cropped wrap, or, you know, whatever the thing is. And I really tried to stick with those things, and when I didn't stick with those things, it just made me feel more like I didn't belong. And so I think, and maybe even more than my hair, it was the clothes, I think. Like, it's like, what is the uniform for these spaces? You know, why is it a thing for me to be on an organ, but I got to play heels with the foot pedals, and, you know, or just, you know, wearing a certain type of dress, and, you know, don't come looking too homely. You gotta look a little, you know, you know, all the things. It's really just like, man, when can I just focus on the music part? Like, that's the part, especially for me, because I felt like that's the part that I wanted to grow in. And that's the part I was like hungry for people to like invest in that part. Like, tell me how to be a better musician. And here I am going to all these people saying, tell me how to be a better musician. And they're saying, wear this. And I'm like, what? Show me a chord. You know? And so it was just like, it's just to fight to get to that point where it's just like, when are we talking about the music? Like, forget all this other stuff. When are we just talking about the music? When are you looking at me as a musician? So yeah, it's been a journey, and I feel like, not to, and I don't even know how this is gonna come out when I say it, but like, not to like be that person, but I feel like now I'm at a space where I've made enough of a name of myself where people can't come to me on that same type of energy, but it just breaks my heart because I know there's other young female musicians who don't have that luxury of just showing up as they are, and like, I mean, they can, but it's like a different kind of fight, and I don't know if they're aware of the fight that they're entering that space with. But now I'm grateful that I can be in this space where it's just like, no, you're gonna come to me talking about the music. You're not coming to me talking about how I'm dressing. If you're not my boss, or you're not the person I have to answer to, like, you know, Silver Arrow has a dress code, cool, like I can abide by that. But like, other than that, you're not talking to me about my hair. My hair is gonna be what my hair is gonna be. You can tell me I'm not playing the song right, but you can't tell me I'm not doing my hair right, you know? So yeah.
And yeah, black women's hair in general, you should not be telling us anything ever, whether it's cropped short, locks, nothing. I feel like there's no way in hell you're going to tell me how to do my hair. When, especially, I feel like it's always a big thing when you're natural too, when you're not necessarily in wigs or anything, and people are like, well, you're not the right kind of natural, you're not the honestly mixed girl hair, you're not that. That's what they want to see. That's the natural they want to see.
If you can't lay your edges,
you can't lay edges. You can't have any curls. Like, you need to have this little thick wavy shit. That's the only thing they accept. And I feel like that's really a universal thing. Black women and their hair, it's an uphill battle entirely.
Yeah,
even with Richardson right now, you know, has caught baby girls doing the damn thing. Okay, I'm so excited to see her. I don't watch the Olympics, but I will this year. I will. We got so many black girls over there this year. She's catching so much heat for her beautiful orange wig. And it's like, she's the fastest baby in the country right now, and that's what you're focused on. And that's what we're talking about. First of all, her wig looks bomb. It looked beautiful. First of all, it stayed on while she ran fast.
Right.
I was like, it's gonna come off. No, I was scared. Like, cause I couldn't imagine a wig being that secure, but it was. Okay, like, I don't understand why they have this obsession. It was with Gabby Douglas a few years ago when she started out. Like, people have this obsession with controlling black women's hair. Yeah. And I really want to know the fascination, but you know, thankfully you found a good place to be, you know, within the industry and how you operate, and you're seasoned enough to be like, you can't tell me this, you can't, you know, to set your boundaries. What advice do you have for young musicians who are just starting out? You know, they're looking very green, so everyone sees that newness and wants to take advantage of that. What advice would you give them, Zahyia?
My thing is, when it comes to anyone practicing their art, what you do is always going to be greater than what you think. Like that, you know, even just if you continue and you're serving as somebody who is an example of something other than what has been pressed to us by white male who have controlled this industry, just existing as yourself, you're greater than what you're creating and what you're performing with. So keep going. That's my big thing. Set your narrative and allow your narrative to be what you create.
Beautiful. And Avis, what encouraging words would you pass along to someone who's just starting out?
I would say figure out what you like and what you see yourself as. I think like early on I had a sense of it. Even in like the stuff that I would learn, like I just remember always really digging deep into these songs that weren't the songs that every other musician was learning. But they touched me, and I wanted to like unpack those songs. And that has actually created a space for me that these other musicians didn't necessarily have access to because they weren't learning that type of thing. So I kind of created my own lane in that sense. Well, maybe not created my own lane, but like it just made me set apart. That's actually kind of how I got the gig with Danielle. There was this song that there were two other musicians who tried to play this song and they just couldn't get it. And it was a song I knew I had learned before and didn't learn for any particular gig. It was just something I liked. And when I played it for her, she's like, yes, that's it. Like they couldn't get it, but that's it. And that just snowballed and trickled into all these other things. And so it's just like, when you take time to like really just do the things that make you feel good or things that like resonate in your ears, and you like just focus on that regardless of if you know that that's going to lead to a gig or lead to this, that, and the other, you just do it for you. Like, I think some amazing things can happen. And that kind of trickles over into like me knowing that like this image of like a female musician that didn't work for me. And I knew that early on. And even though I conformed to it for a time period, coming out of that made me reconnect to what I already originally knew. Like I already originally knew I wanted to be like this, I didn't know how it was going to come about, but just I knew that the vision that I had for myself looked a little different. And so just have these visions for yourself and know like what you like and what feels good to you and walk in it.
That's awesome. And
I'm going to disagree with you with one thing, Avis. I think you did create your own lane. I really think you did. I feel like you have, you're a trendsetter, and you definitely have inspired a lot of other people. So,
oh my gosh, thank you.
I love you.
I love you too.
Oh, they make me so happy. Y'all so beautiful. Oh.
Zahyia is the girl. Like I love her so much. Like really, you have just like a genuine spirit, and you have like a genuine spirit, and you have the talent.
Yeah.
And I just like I love seeing you do your thing and working with you.
Yes, I love seeing Black women lift Black women up. That's, I feel like when you find your camaraderie within your industry, it's always with someone who knows what you go through, who can recognize the strength that you have and all of it, and I'm so happy you have a community, and that's in Rochester music at least, and that's really what's important. And we're running out of time here, but I just want to say thank you so much for the conversation today. I've been having people of different industries on in the last few months, and getting to hear things that I normally wouldn't know or think about or recognize is always a great time. Understanding someone's side is always an amazing experience. And I thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing that today. And being vulnerable and opening up. And that's really, like, I didn't expect to get that, but I always appreciate that when someone is willing to share parts of themselves, because there are so many younger musicians who are going to be coming up, and I hope they see something from you guys that is that piece that they need in the hard times. Because that's the thing, it's always like you need when a hard time's happening, you need something. And things happen, you know, you just see something. And I hope this is that for someone, if all that jumble made sense. You know, I hope for the best for these little babies that are coming up, and they have amazing people to look up to thanks to you guys. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Anything you want to share with the show, feel free to. We'd love to have you back on anytime. Also, I do need like some background music for the show. So if we can collab and figure that out, I would love that. Yeah, to get a little vibe going for the show. So I'll hit you guys offline for that. Thanks once again for coming on. Happy Pride, happy Juneteenth, happy Black Music Month. And just making sure, is there anything you guys would like to say before you come off, before we leave?
I'll let Avis lead it.
No, I appreciate you having us, and appreciate you giving us space to have this dialogue. And I do really hope that we see like more women like enter this music scene, because like we can be out here killing. Like, we don't have to feel intimidated, and like, don't let these men fool you, because just because they have more bravado doesn't mean that they have more talent. So like, I really do want to see like a whole new generation of like young women who are playing keys, who are playing drums, who are playing bass, who are playing electric guitar. You know, like, we don't have to limit ourselves. And even if you don't see another woman right now in like a specific area, like, you can be that one. So I really hope to see in like the next 5 years a whole new group of women entering this scene, because there is space for us.
Do you have anything, Zahyia?
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%. And especially, I want to drop a little bit of statistics with this to piggyback off what Avis said. We're actually declining. The women participation in the music industry has been falling. And that's not the same thing that we're seeing in like the movie industry. Things are getting better. Our representation in film and television is so much better than it was 6 or 7 years ago. But that same trend is not happening in the music industry. And still to this day, only 2% of females in the music industry are producers, which is a ridiculous amount. And it's like, I think it was like 180 to 1 is the ratio for women of color. So it's just, we really need to, and it's lonely when you don't have that community. So yes, women, learn to play an instrument, learn production, learn the tech part of things, and so we can build something even better. And you know, the army can push forward.
Yes, all of it. Yes, those. Thanks for dropping those statistics. That's the eye-opening. But yeah, you guys are great. I'm glad we have you in the community, and you guys are spreading the positivity that comes with you guys. And just, thank you so much for coming on today. We'll share this later, and I can't wait to reconnect. I will be hitting you guys back up. I can't wait to reconnect. So thank you so much for coming on. Have a good day.
So you too.
Bye.